news. You don't need any music theory in order to have your chords be effective when you're playing the hymns, because the chords are already there. Most of the time, all of the major notes in a chord are present because that's how hymns are written. So we're going to do two things. One is we're going to roll some chords, and the other is we will break up some chords, broken chords, just like you might see if you were playing classical or a little bit in romantic music too. Any music that you've been playing, broken chords actually are really popular in more contemporary new age type music too. So you've probably played music like this, even if you don't really know how to create it yourself. So let's take a look here. We're going to use a sacrament hymn. This is 185, Reverently and Meekly Now. And I'm going to start just by rolling some chords so you can hear what that's like. I basically rolled every single chord. I don't actually like that. You might like that. I don't know. I feel like it's ineffective if you use it on every single chord. Instead, I would prefer to save it for a place where it is more effective. So let's look at the last line. With my body on the tree, I have ransomed even thee. I'm going to roll some chords there and see if I can find an effective spot to do that. So I liked that. I like putting the emphasis on the first beat there a little bit, just a little bit of... And then when I went back to block chords, it's very solid. And that's on the words even thee. I've ransomed even thee. And notice I actually had a wrong note down here. You might not have noticed. But it worked in the chord. I didn't bother changing it. Embrace your mistakes. If we wanted to slow down that broken chord to the point where it's almost, or the roll, sorry, I was rolling. If we wanted to slow down that roll, it almost becomes a broken chord. So here in the third line, with my blood that dripped like rain, I'm just going to put a little emphasis on that last word, rain, because that's a really, really evocative image. And so I'm going to slow down. I'm going to play a broken chord on rain and slow it down so that the melody note is the last thing we hear. And the people who are listening will be waiting for it because they know the melody, right? Brings it out a little more, just puts a little more emphasis on it. Can be very effectively used that way. Another thing we can do is to break up the chords. So take the left hand notes. We would be playing these together. Instead, we're going to separate them like this and just keep it going within the rhythm. So I'm going to play this first phrase just with those left hand notes broken. Sometimes this works well, sometimes it doesn't. Always experiment first. Okay, now I'm actually going to take the alto note and mix it in there sometimes. So I might only play the soprano line in my right hand, and my left hand will play the tenor and bass, and my right hand might hit the alto note for me if I don't want to stretch up to reach it with my left hand. That's fine. I'm not adding any notes compared to what's already there. I'm just putting the alto part in that broken chord. Now I made a mistake on that that too with one of the chords, but I liked it. It was a nice little suspension. It was cool. If I did it without that mistake, now I didn't have any particular pattern that I was doing with the broken chords. You probably will develop patterns over time, and in fact, when we talk about music theory solutions, coming up with cool patterns are all over the place. Okay, the other thing you can do is we have, in the left hand, we have a B flat and an E flat. We could just do this in octaves. So we could add another B flat underneath if we wanted. It would sound like this. And I'm adding a C on top because there was a C on bottom. And then a D on top. Whoops, wrong chord, sorry. And I did put an F in there. That just kind of came naturally, sorry. On that last one, it was not marked that there's an F, but we know there's an F in the chord because guess what? It's the melody note, for sure. So let me do that one more time. Adding in an octave whenever I can, so that basically my left hand will be spanning that octave. That on the ones where it was a quarter note instead of a half note, I didn't bother adding in more because I was doing eighth notes. 2 eighth notes is all we really need. And so when we have 2 notes in the left hand, we don't need to add in the octave to make it sound more complete. You could do that just about anywhere, and you don't have to do exactly the octaves that I did. Here we had E flat and B flat. I added the B flat below. But instead, you could make E flat be your high note, put B flat below it, and then go to the E flat below that. I'm going down here. And that I was just going up the chord notes. I could see all those chord notes if I looked at my right and left hand. So some of the stuff I did there might have been a little bit too much for your first time experimenting with this, but you would probably get there at some point just by doing it week over week without having any idea what the music theory behind that is, where you're adding notes and you don't even realize you're adding them, but they sound good, so you keep adding them. That's great. Don't be afraid to experiment, right? Always embrace your mistakes. You will learn from them, and have fun.